like to call the meeting to order. Begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. Have a call on the roll, please.
Councilman Thacker.
Aye. Oh,
Councilman-
President, I'm sorry. I'm ready to vote.
Councilwoman Wager.
Here.
Councilwoman Thies.
Here.
Councilman Norris.
Here.
Councilwoman Wilson.
Here.
Councilman Thompson.
Here.
Councilman Loudermilk.
Here. Thank you. We now have public comments. We will limit public comment to 5 minutes per speaker. Would ask that those that would like to speak, please approach the podium, state your name and address, and sign in at the sheet at the podium. So with that, we now open up this time for public comment. And just so everybody's clear, comments are to be limited to items on tonight's agenda.
Hello, council members. Everybody hear me all right? Sorry. I know at the last one, we had trouble hearing what was going on. There may have been some confusion on that. As I said last time, I do have property. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm Dustin Havens, 3463 East Moyer Drive. Last time I talked to you, I do have property on Lama Street and the railroad. Also, I've been a member at the Legion. I've held office there. I think I've been a member for 20 years, somewhere around there. Also, I operate Dusty's Transmission. Some of the things that I had tonight, you already heard. I don't want it, period. No, it's wasteful. We've got plenty of parks. I have questions actually, not only for the council members, but also for the commissioners. One of the things that the commissioners brought up, that they're going to have a motorized carts. Is this a bike path, walk trail, a cart path? What is this? I mean, what do you call this? Because I don't know of any that I could find through Indiana where they allowed carts, motorized carts on these type of trails. Are we able to answer this? What are we gonna call this path besides the Riley Trail? And Aaron, I understand this may be difficult for the
No,
commissioners.
I just want to make sure, we do this efficiently, because if we get into a back and forth with each speaker, it will likely not be really effective, honestly. But I think we could do it one of two ways. We could either do it that way, and the commissioners can kind of help as we go along, or you could pose your questions, and once that public comment is completed, then we have a time for elected officials and other officials to speak, and they could address all those concerns. Would that be fair to you?
Yeah, either, yeah, I'm willing, I'm here, you know, there's just some stuff I want answered that we, you know.
Can we do
didn't-
that as a group of commissioners? Yeah. Address whatever concerns they have during this portion and address it at that time.
All right, when are you wanting to address it?
So after public comment is concluded, whatever concerns you have right now, they can compile all that information and then answer it after you guys are completed.
I think it would be best if just have a short answer right now. I'm not going to question back on it. I just, what is their answer? Just, okay, I mean, that was e-bikes. So are we still going to have a speed limit? There won't be one. Because this is, I mean, if it, I don't know if it's going to pass or not. I feel these are legitimate questions. I think they are. Correct. Correct. And I would like this stuff on record. I mean, to you it doesn't. I mean, Lord,
How about,
that's what, they said no golf carts.
let's just do this, because I can already tell we're,
Well, I was going to move on from this.
Yeah.
I just was
I
answering.
I can address some questions if you
the
want,
commissioner.
just as they come off.
sure.
So short answer is no electric vehicles. There would be some discussion with e-bikes and some electric scooters and things like that, and like Chris said, ADA accessible
Okay.
vehicles themselves.
And that, all I was asking was the cards. That was
Sure.
it. The next thing, and a lot of these questions, I just wanted you guys to know, a lot of these questions are from people that have corresponded with me. A lot of people were not able to show up due that they're still at work or some other problem. So I'm trying to answer some of the questions for the people that come to me that we're not able to answer. One of the questions is how high is this fence going to be? Are we going to have a 4-foot fence, or are we going to have a 10-foot fence?
Typically, if we looked at screening, it would be a 6-foot fence. So
Uh,
in the areas where we would provide screening, some of the issue though is, once we get into design, if we get to that point, is whether that screening is effective at 6 feet. Because if it's an elevated on the railroad bed itself, a 6-foot fence at the edge of the property is not gonna be that effective. So we may have to look at some alternative screening options,
So you'll make that decision?
Yes,
when
when we get into design, those options will be, so if there are residents that would desire screening, then we would work with that individual on what would be acceptable to them. That's why really, as far as cost estimates go, it could be some trees, shrubs, it could be something natural, or it could be something a little bit larger. So,
Okay. What, are you also going to be able to, or you're going to determine what the length of the fence it will be?
yes, so the extent of where that is, and we'll work on individual property owners. My comments at last meeting, I would rather not fence screening at all, because it defeats the purpose of having the trail and the
And I
places
understand,
that it-
I understand
yeah.
that. I know the commissioners have told many people they're going to put
Yeah.
fencing up.
Yeah, I think that we could work with individuals on a case-by-case basis on where that screening is desired, where it's not. It could be something that they could put up if, maybe that could be removed if they don't desire that in the future.
Okay. You mentioned the material would be like a chain link fence. What if the owners want something other than a chain link fence? Is that possible?
That's possible. Like I said, case-by-case, we would look and see what would be effective for each property owner.
And will this fence on these property owners, are you going to start the fence when you start laying the asphalt, or are you going to put that up first? I mean,
Fencing is usually something that's done at the end of a project, just because of the construction activities going on to actually build the trail or build the project itself. So those would be things that will all be hammered out in design. And this, for the record, this is just for funding. This is not the nuts and bolts of designing this thing and every detail. There'll be a lot of work and a lot of effort that goes into that to
Sure.
make sure it's effective.
I've
So-
just got questions from other individuals. That way I can go back and tell them exactly what you've told me. So, on the commissioner's website, they've got down, little over $1.3 million. Okay? And is that what, the estimate you come up with?
Yes, that's a rough estimate for what I deem the trail should cost.
So 250,000 is going to the railroad. 140,000 is going to remove the ties.
Correct.
And that will leave left over, just under $1 million.
Correct.
Okay. And you are the engineer, so you
Yes.
pretty much know, everything. What does it cost, and you can either do it by the square foot or linear, but what does it cost for, say, 5 inches of asphalt?
Asphalt right now is about $90 a ton.
$90 a ton? And do you know what square footage is in that?
I don't have, like I said, I don't have the estimate with me as far as the detail of it, but I have the length, you know.
Uh-huh.
When we calculate that, we do the length, the width, and the run, and how long it goes, and figure out the weight, and then that's how you come up with your estimate.
Right. Well, I mean, it's pretty simple to figure that stuff out. That, like you said, just kind of get an idea of other trails that have been built. And, what I come up with was just the asphalt. There's not going to be any money left over for the fencing, the signs, any other facility. That's why, I guess I'm wondering is, how did you guys come up with the 1.3 when I feel from what I've come up with, the cost just on pouring the asphalt, we could easily get into $3 million.
I have to disagree. The asphalt, the estimate that I used was $85 a ton. It didn't go up some from that, from what my estimate should be.
You're right, 80, you're
But
right on that.
I estimated the full 6 miles. Like I said at the previous council meeting, that's not necessary. We have to build the full 6 miles in one fell swoop. We could do it by phase. We could do the section from Riley to Idle Creek at Eldridge. That would leave approximately 3 miles of asphalt costs that could go towards fencing or signage or anything else to address the immediate concerns there in Riley. Again, that will all be issues that will be handed out, dealt with during design phase.
1.3 million. I don't think that's going to be enough money for this. It's going to take more tax money.
An inch and a half overlay for a 20-foot wide road right now is costing us $100,000 a mile. So we're only going 8 feet wide, so.
Okay. And I'm not disagreeing. I just took this right. I looked up on the internet.
Okay.
I'm not disagreeing with that. Like I said, I'm not the engineer. I was just trying to see if 1.3. My calculations, they're under budget. And also from what I've seen with what's going on in Beale County, especially with the school deal, I can tell you, I don't want higher property taxes. I don't want to be taxed more, especially if this is going to cost us more. I feel it's a no-brainer. We don't need it. The last question is for Chris Schweitzer. Chris, have you or any of the other commissioners, have you signed anything with the railroad yet? Haven't signed anything. Okay. I was just wanting to see. I was wanting to see if there was something other than that to get this through so quickly. I understand Mike mentioned, I think there was a deadline on getting it signed. I was just curious if there was something else. So that is all I have to say. I said, other than that, thank you all for listening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is David Weitzel,
10951 Louisville Road, Terre Haute. I'm the commander of American Legion 328. Our biggest concern right off is liability issue. We have lakes within 75 feet of this track. And right now, when it's the railroad owns it, it's trespassing. But when they put this trail in, anybody can walk down it, and nobody is going to be able to stop anybody from going down. Looking in the back of their property, we have several houses down the road that have been built off the road for this reason. And we talk about fences and signs and whatever is only going to keep the honest people out. And sad to say, we've got a problem with homeless people here in Vigo County, and they seem to go wherever there's a possibility nobody's going to bother them. There's areas between Idle Creek and the Legion that there's no houses right on that trail. There's over a mile that is just woods. It is not a safe place that I believe for anybody to go down there. When we've had problems other places around the county and the state and the country, when there's out running, in the news every so often you find people that are attacked. I did have information, a lawyer from Kansas City. Like I said in the last meeting, we found out, or at least we did, the Legion, from a lawyer from Kansas City, Missouri on the 30th of May, that the Indiana Railroad had decided to give up the track, and that the Vigo County, it said Vigo County, I'm assuming the commissioners, but had signed up to get the trail in. But anyway, on June 9th, they sent this information. This came down from the Surface Transportation Board, and there were certain requirements that the Indiana Railroad was supposed to do before they even started salvage operations. And one of the biggest ones, it said that the Indiana Department of Natural Resources noted that the bridges present on the line and their supporting foundation structures may impede upstream fish migration. So my biggest question is, does commissioners know, anybody know whether Indiana American or Indiana Railroad went to the Department of Natural Resources to see if this has been done? At the same time, if it hasn't been done, are we going to have to come back and tear their bridges out? And has anybody checked the stability on these bridges? I've got an individual on the bridge on the east side of Riley that is in very poor shape. And my question is, once we pass this, if it is passed, and then suddenly we have to pay more money to build new bridges, and what about if the existing bridges can be used? Has money been put in for a solid planking? Because the way it's set up now, the ties are so far apart, it looks like a possibility someone could trip through that. Also, is there going to be any guardrails? Those trestles basically are 15 feet is my estimate. I have not taken a measurement, but anybody could fall off of there 15 feet and be hurt. So this is just concerns over costs that may come up after this is passed. You know, that we haven't even decided yet whether or not these costs are going to be there. And I know in the last meeting there was concern, didn't have the cost of the fence yet. So I'm just curious if the commissioners have these figures, if they figured this out, or whether this is something they just intend to fill in later after it's passed. And I agree the same way, just like the agenda that was voted down. The newspaper for a month or more has been talking about how great it is to have these trails, and the people moving in, that's what they want. Well, I think you found out last night the property owners are concerned with property taxes being raised, and also whether money is spent wisely. Personally, I think the Vigo County School Corporation has done a terrible job. But at the same time, we're going to take on this trail, and this trail is, I've been told, is going to be extended clear to West Terre Haute, clear up to the one out by Glen. What about the cost going up there? This is just the beginning of something that the taxpayers are going to have to pay as the years go by, just on upkeep. They just opened an 822-acre park. How much maintenance is that going to cost us from now on? It just seems to me that it's going to be a lot of money that we don't even know we got yet. It's gonna be something spent in the future, and nobody knows how the costs are gonna be. And the other thing, I brought this up in our last meeting, April 21st, excuse me, of 2021, the Indiana Railroad filed for abandonment. On the 19th of May, the Vigo County filed for trail use, and we ended up finding out on the 30th of May from a lawyer in Kansas City. And in that 11-month time, the commission has not called, as far as I know, any of the people, at least I've talked to, of property owners, to see what their opinion is. It ended up on the 5th, they had 16 people for and nobody against. And my question was, I've heard while doing some research that Commissioner Kearns was asked how many people were against it, and his comment was 3, I believe. And then I've also talked to people in Riley. There was a heated argument down there, and I think there were more than 3 people in that meeting that were against it. So I don't think the commissioner has been on the up and up with the property owners, wanted to keep us in the dark all along. We finally got that letter April 8th after the Sunshine meeting, and then it was going to be voted on. And we never got any correspondence to express our opinion or anything. And I think if it hadn't been in the paper, we still wouldn't have had any, we wouldn't have known about it. It had been passed. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Aaron Gadberry, 4391 Carriage Lane. And I respect everybody's opinion here, so it's good to hearing from some of these people. But my question to some of these people is, how many trails have you guys been on? Or how many trails have you been around? I've been around trails in Terre Haute, all over the world, the Mickelson Trail out in South Dakota, the Monon Trail in Indy, and a whole lot of trails. And you guys talk about, I assume the bridges that are going to be on the trails are going to be safe and nobody's going to fall through them. I've been on trails that you have to, overpasses. I think we're smart enough not to jump off of them and not to get hurt. And also the trails in Terre Haute and the parks here that we have been a great asset. It has saved my life. And I literally mean that. Like, at one time in my life, I was overweight. I'm embarrassed to say that, but I was like most of Terre Haute, unhealthy and overweight. We need this in Terre Haute to keep people healthy and keep people exercising. Even people like my parents who are older, they need to go out to a trail and they need to walk, ride bikes, recumbent bikes, and get out and stop watching Matlock all day. But for me, it did save my life. Every Friday night, I go to bed early to get up and go run with my friends. And the friends that I run with, a lot of them I see in this room. The thing I like about who I run with and what I'm outside doing, I'm with Republicans, I'm with Democrats, and it's really kind of cool because we disagree on everything politically. But when we're out on that trail running or biking together, we are one community and one friend, and we are there to encourage people, to help people. We're there to help property owners. If we're out on a trail and we see litter, we will pick up the trash. If we see people walking by somebody's home or especially somebody's business or home, we will call the cops. We will help you. We are there to help. A lot of traffic will help. I've been to a lot of trails. My wife is a runner. She runs on the trail by herself. She's never been afraid to go out on the trail to run by herself. My daughter is a freshman in high school. She's not afraid to go out on the Heritage Trail and run by herself. So, I'm pretty confident if I'm able to let my wife and my daughter to go run, I'm pretty confident about the trail from Riley to Idle Creek to be safe. There's always things that can happen on a trail. I mean, Dave Chappelle got attacked last night at a concert, so, and there's 50,000 security there, so you can get attacked anywhere. I can get attacked leaving this parking lot. I can get attacked at a gas station. We can't control everything. But, I mean, I'm confident enough to run on the trail. I'm confident enough to let my wife and my daughter, who I love, you know, dearly, to go run on these trails. And again, I don't want my taxes to go up either. I complain, you know, we all run and complain about taxes too, and property taxes. But we do have to grow as a community. And like I said, last weekend I was at the Monon Trail, and I ran by 2 or 3 subdivisions that had literally paths going out to the trail and into the subdivision, and that's how they sold, you know, the subdivision for growth. And again, I just, and I'm not a very good speaker, so I apologize, but we really need this. It will help Terre Haute grow. I don't see it raising our taxes, and from what I see on the budget of the trail, think anything we are probably, will come in under budget, probably, from what they estimated, if I look at other trails on it. So I just hope you guys put a lot of thought into it and respect everybody. And, you know, like me, I'm going to respect everybody's opinion here. And I hope the trail passes, and I hope everybody that lives out there comes to enjoy it. I think they will. And I hope everybody that runs on the trail or bikes on the trail will say hi to everybody. If you see people out on the trail or walking in the neighborhood, you know, you say hello, how are you doing? And that's, you know, the right thing to do. And hopefully in return, the property owners, if they see us running, they say hi and wave to us, because, you know, we can all get along and have a really nice thing for Terre Haute. And we need progress right now and some positive things. So thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Hi, my name's John Proctor. I live at 6720 East Coast Drive. The track runs right behind my house. We have water right there. I'm afraid I'm going to have people on my property. As we speak, I've just dealt with four-wheelers on the tracks. I've just ran mushroom hunters out of my woods. I just found out from my neighbor to the west that last year somebody came in and poached deer on my property with their four-wheelers. And speaking of trails, I love trails. I love walking the deer trails in my woods. I love living where I live with not everybody up my you-know-what all the time. That's why I live there. I don't want a trail right behind my house when I'm sitting on my porch watching everybody walking by. Live there my whole life. It's been peaceful. It's been quiet. The other question I have is the railroad abandoned the tracks. They came in, they got all their money from the steel. Why is the taxpayer paying $140,000 to remove more of their product on that property? And why is the taxpayer paying $250,000 for an abandoned track? It sounds to me like the railroad is coming out like a bandit on this deal. Plus, they're going to keep the easement. I want my property back. I don't want any money. I want my property back. I want it. Let's turn it back green. Let's clean it up. Let's not put asphalt. Let's not put oil on the ground. Let's go back to nature. Everybody talks about green and making this place a better planet, but all we want to do is lay oil and junk on the ground. What's going to happen when somebody trespasses on my property and they get hurt and they come after me? Do I send you guys the bill? What do I do? I mean, do I send the commissioners or the council the bill when somebody gets on my property, falls, breaks their leg, and sues me? Because that can happen. What do I do about that?
As a property owner, you have those liabilities, as I do.
Right.
We all have the same liabilities. The trail, whether there's a trail there or not, does not change.
I understand that, but
You
who's
asked
to
it-
say that because I've got people riding their four-wheelers up and down and now, and they come on my property and they get hurt? I shouldn't have to carry an umbrella policy on my property insurance because people are trespassing.
And sorry, let's try to keep this to the trail.
This is the trail.
So
I can see the trail from my house, so.
can I answer your question? So you ask the question is, what do you need to do as a landowner? That doesn't impact any difference whether there's a trail there or a rail that's abandoned, in my opinion. And I personally I am a property owner as well. So what I'm saying is you absolutely have a right and be respectful, just as the other ones were, about your opinions. And
Right.
we're gonna factor that into our ultimate decision. But it doesn't impact and change your liability one way or another, whether there is a rail there or a trail or it's abandoned.
Well, sure, it impacts my ability, because before there's a train rolling up and down the tracks. Now I've got people. The train doesn't drive into my property and tear my stuff up.
It can.
People do.
It can.
Well, I've lived there my whole life. You know when the last time that train ran down that track? Can you tell me? Because I can tell you.
I would assume around 92.
Yes.
So since 92.
Other than they
had-
stored some cars on it.
Yeah.
About 5 years
Like I
ago.
say, is we're factoring all that in, and I read your statement that you sent out, an email, and you said there that you currently have trespassers.
Right.
So.
And they're
you're-
riding four-wheelers up and down it now, and
So
you don't have, it's not like the one in Terre Haute. You don't have all the housing and the people, because what runs through Terre Haute mostly is like the old sidewalk. I mean, I just drove into town. People want to go out and walk. Let's spend this money on fixing the roads. Let's fix the sidewalks in this town. I mean, honestly, there's parts of Terre Haute you drive through, it's a dump. And we want to spend minimum of $1.5 million on doing all this work when this town needs a ton of work.
So there again is, what I would say to you is in your statement, you said you currently have trespassers and four-wheelers. We're looking to try to have, the suggestion they have is to have it where there's not motorized vehicles on the trail, so that would
Who's
help
gonna-
address your.
Right, but who's
Please,
gonna police this?
Can I please?
Sure.
Can you show me the same respect I show you?
Sure.
So if you would look at this logically, is if there's people that's walking it and monitoring it, and then there's not motorized vehicles on it, then it's already done something that you're saying that you currently have an issue with. So we're trying to improve it. So, that's why we're saying we're taking this in, all this information. I don't know how this is all going to play out. That's why we have this process. So I appreciate your input, and I've got you down what your comments were, and I'll factor that in our overall decision.
Because when you open this up even more for more people, there is going to be more issues with, because the majority of the landowners along this property are not like me and a couple other people that are close to the tracks. Most of their houses are, and they have the bottom grounds and they're further away, so they don't know what's going to be going on. So, thank you for your time, council.
Thank you.
Just one quick question that relates to that. It'll be quick. Is it a fact, though, like the other gentleman said, that it is now considered trespassing to walk along that easement?
Yes,
So those
the
people
railroad
are
it's been
trespassing, so that when
It's
we
been
do that,
trespass on the railroad since the railroads had it.
okay, so that when,
Right. Now, being that it's abandoned, that they say that it's abandoned right now, which I don't know if it is or not, being that the railroad has the easement on it, it still would be trespassing.
so the people that are on your property now are trespassing?
Right.
But they won't be when we finish the trail? Yeah, but there
They
will
will
be.
be.
there will be
Trust
more-
me, they will be. You can't stop mushroom hunters. They go where they want to go.
True, that's true. I have it on my property too.
Hunters
They
and deer
do
hunters are the
trespass.
same way. I've dealt with a bunch of them.
Yep, me too.
Thank you.
Me too.
My name's Steve Sankey. I live at 5326 East Gross Drive. And I have property that runs all the way back to the railroad track. And if you come down Tucker Street, it dead ends on my property. Is there going to be a crossing back there? It's hayfield. Well, I have to have access, but I can't hear real good, and I didn't hear what they said about the fence along there.
The fence was designed, came up with a request from landowners in the town of Riley. They wanted something consistent.
Microphone.
What?
Microphone.
I'm just gonna sit with Larry. Can I just do that? Here. Oh, I wanted that chair. That's nicer. Yeah, thanks. The fencing was offered to the Riley Town Council to make it nicer through there and protect the residents' homes in the town of Riley proper. Dusty, is he still here? I told Dusty that we would put a fence, we would mirror his fence, 8-foot tall chain link fence on the back side, because he currently does not have a fence there. He has a fence on 2 sides, is that right, Dusty? On 1 side, but we offered to extend his fence to protect his area. For your situation, we talked earlier today because it was brought up, a neighbor of yours who wants this to go mentioned that you would have access issues, and so we talked today, we will make sure that you are able to get your tractors where you need to be to get your hay.
How wide a crossing they gonna make?
Our engineer right there will work with you on it. But we'll make sure that nobody will have blocked access. How are you doing it now?
Well, there's a crossing there.
So there's an actual crossing. You're not trespassing across the rail line. You're going across
It's
a crossing.
It's actually a county road. I mean, Tucker Street is.
Oh, you're on Tucker?
Well,
It's a non-issue. Yeah, because we just paved Tucker.
not down there you didn't.
Well, you know where that stop sign is? That was like this? It's now like that because I backed into it. Just letting you know that.
You mean, down there at the railroad track?
Right at the bottom, I had to turn around, and all these guys can tell you I do a bad job backing up, but
So-
I found that post.
So you paved that down there?
Just so that'd be easier for me the next time, yeah.
I say you did pave it?
No, it goes down at the bottom of the hill. But at the bottom of the hill on our property, that would be a good place for what they call a trailhead or a safe spot to park. But your area, you will not have any obstructions or impedance.
Well, how about a gate across there to keep people from driving out across my hayfield?
There's a gate there now, isn't there?
No.
No? Want to do a gate? We'll throw in a gate.
Well, that's gonna help. I'm still not sold on it.
I know, but we'll do what you're asking.
Well, how about a fence?
You're really asking an awful lot. I knew you were going to keep going.
Well, you said you'd do what I needed.
We'll work on it. What Larry and I, Mike, Chris, we'll get Bobby James, we'll go out, we'll meet with you, and we'll walk it and see.
Okay,
Sound fair?
well, yeah. I can't say I'm still sold on it, but I want to meet with you, call me, and
It's just like when I called Dusty and I offered him to do the back fence. You know, those are things that we will do to make this right. We want it to work. I learned that there's several people that are dumping raw sewage down in that trail area. And that's something we've been working on. And we've got to figure that out, because the last thing we want to do is open up a trail and people are walking down it and it smells like the sewage plant down south. But we have learned, and you know this, everybody in this room that lives along there knows, there's raw sewage going straight from homes right down into that ditch. There's actually a business where they applied to put a building on. I learned from area planning today, and the way they did it to circumvent having a bathroom. Well, where are they going to the bathroom? That business has people in there during the day. Well, I'll tell you where they're going to the bathroom. They're going to the bathroom in a toilet that's dumping the raw sewage right down to where our trail is, where we would like our trail. So those are things that we are all going to be working on throughout this process. So, and I wasn't even going to bring that up, but apparently I did.
I guess
Yeah.
you did.
Sorry about that.
There
You
was
asked for a fence, I talk about sewage.
Yeah. Well, there was something else I wanted to ask, but now I've lost
I
track.
threw you off, didn't I? It's pretty good.
Typical politician.
I know. Oh, that was good. That was good. I like your property, though. It's a nice property you have down there,
Well,
right by the wetlands.
Oh, that's what I wanted. You said something about trailhead down there.
Yeah.
So what's that gonna, you
We-
gonna buy ground or?
We have some down there, don't we? I think
Who?
we do. Do we own the road there? Yeah, we can put, a trailhead can be like 4 or 5 parking spots. It doesn't have to be anything grandiose. But what's nice about that road that we just recently paved, because it was in bad shape,
But you
If-
didn't drop down over the hill with the pavement, right?
it goes pretty far down. Yeah,
How
but-
long ago did you pave it?
But EMS vehicles, if somebody has a heart attack or there's issues, we can get, that's a good halfway point to get emergency personnel, because we have a nice smooth road for the most part down there. It's pretty close.
Well,
Engineers taking over.
I think the paving stops just south of that last residence on Tucker Street.
right top the hill.
Right, yeah, it goes down over the side a little bit.
Actually, that pavement right there makes it harder for me to get up the hill when I'm bringing a load of hay up. It's just as my truck gets up there, it starts spinning out in that gravel. Now, if you pave all the way down the hill, I can live with that.
Well, we can look at that, and like I said, when we get into design, we'll get into all these issues, and we
And while
can
you're
all
there,
get back
cut
together and
some of
figure
that
out what
brush
to do.
back So I can get on, without scratching my truck all up.
We'll stay in touch with you, Mr. Sankey.
And I might think a few more things.
We'll be around. We got a next meeting at 7. We're here till at least 7.
Before,
Larry Sweet, South.
can
Moon
you hold on one
River
second,
Street,
please, sir?
Terre Haute.
Can you wait 1 second, please? Had the commissioners offered these people an opportunity to come into a meeting and speak to them as a whole? Because I feel like what we have now is a question and answer session, which should have been handled by the commissioners absent of this meeting, quite frankly. I mean, this council meeting is become a situation in which it's a Q&A because they have a lot of concerns that should have been addressed long before we got to this point, quite frankly. I mean, it's too much. It should have been handled in advance of tonight.
Typically, those things are hammered out during design. You know what I mean? So we're requesting the funding at this point, but if that's something that, is desired, that's something we can do.
That's where I have a problem.
It just seems as though there's a lot of questions by a lot of people in attendance on each side of this issue that should have been dealt with in a commissioner's arena versus a council meeting, in my opinion. I mean,
I agree.
Well, and I think that we're getting down into the weeds on a lot of the issues on residents, specific residents and their needs, like a fence and gates and things like that, which all would be taken care of during design. We by no means want to restrict anybody's access or put anybody out by this project. The only thing we are requesting to do is to acquire the right-of-way for the easement at this time. So.
That's all we should.
So what we're trying to do is make sure that we don't have this opportunity, that we don't miss this for our community, so we can go forward with this. As far as constructing the project itself and building it out, all of these issues, visibility, sight distance, restricting motorized vehicles, all that is things that we've taken care of in the design. And before we put money into it to do this design work, it'd be nice to know if we're even going to do the project at all. So. It's kind of a chicken or an egg kind of scenario, whether you do that stuff first or you do it after. It's kind of half dozen one, half 6 of another. But
I agree. I agree 100%, but it's kind of that way
Yep.
from our perspective as well.
Yep,
right?
I agree.
Because if we see what this is turning into, then it may sway us as a council as well.
I agree.
So, I mean, it's just these. We've seen how contentious topics can become very contentious very quick, and I think it's where we're heading now. And a lot of times people want to be heard on their own time, right? So,
And before last minute.
sorry to cut you off. I
No
apologize
problem.
about that. I just wanted to state that before you
Yeah,
started.
I spoke in favor at the last meeting of the trail as a potential trail user, so I won't go into that. I would just comment that I own 50 acres of property in Vigo County in 2 different parcels. And trespassers will come no matter where your property is, what it is. It could be a swamp, it could be a sewage, it could be anything, and you gotta run trespassers off of it. I haven't heard, what I have not heard is an alternate plan for what to do with this rail line. If you don't make a trail off of it, you just let it sit the way it is, and I drive over the track by the Legion where the crossing is, and you can look right down there. And if I wanted to do some mischief, I would jump on a four-wheeler and go right down that right-of-way, just like they do now. That's what I'm dealing with right now. But, so if we leave the railroad line alone, or even take the rails off of it, that ain't gonna stop nobody from doing that. In fact, it's gonna be more inviting for them because it's not paved, there's nobody out there pushing a baby cart, you know. Hey, I wonder where that goes. So they're gonna go right down there off their four-wheeler with their side-by-side, with their dirt bike, with whatever. I use the Heritage Trail all the time. It's paved, you got people there, there's always somebody watching you wherever you're going, and there is some stretches there that are along the woods where there isn't any population, and I don't see people coming in and out of there with guns and bows and bags of mushrooms. I mean, maybe it happens, but I just don't see it. So the trail, I don't think is going to be any more attraction, and probably less, than if you just let it sit and revert. It's going to be more attractive to people who are up to no good if you don't do something with it and develop it. So that's my view on the trespass issue. But trust me, I get it. I have ground, and it's a battle, but I don't think it's going to make it any worse. And it should help.
Thank you.
Larry Sweet, 8025 South Moveover Street. My one property is about a mile from the trail, but I go by those tracks. That's another deal. I mean, you're going to have to spend money to pave over those tracks anyway. Hopefully, they just won't be let deteriorate. So, and as far as taxes go, I've been a don't wanter on a lot of issues, but I'm not a don't wanter on this one. I'm a wanter. But it was my understanding at the first presentation that the money was coming out of a fund that was already there and allocated for certain projects. So it was my understanding it was not going to be a tax additional levy for taxes. The trail now, it's been in, I don't know, Heritage Trail's been in for a few years, and I've seen it a couple of spots patched, but I don't see a huge maintenance issue there that's going to need a lot of constant maintenance. So, yeah, I'm not in favor of new taxes either.
I spoke last time too. My name is Buddy Green. I live on 2000 North 9th Street in Terre Haute, not near this particular trail, but near another one. I think one of the things we're having here is I think we need to clear up some poor perceptions here. I think everyone has a valid point as far as it goes, but I think, first of all, everybody that uses the trail, stand up. right here, right now. Which of these people are you afraid of? That's what I asked, because this is who uses the trail. It is not something to be feared. As Larry just pointed out, this is an improvement to your area. You're not going to have people going down four-wheelers. You're not going to have people camping in the woods. You're going to have this constantly patrolled by the people that are on it, and also by whoever takes care of it. It's going to be safer. The idea that it's not is kind of like we're blind. It is. This is going to be safer. You're going to be living next to a park. We call these lineal parks, and they raise the value of the property. I mean, almost invariably, wherever they've been in the past. So there's almost, certainly there are negatives. I mean, we don't want it changed, God forbid, in Terre Haute, but sometimes it's good. And we must not be afraid of it. These are not bad people. And I recommend that you that are opposed to it, go out on Saturday afternoon and Sunday afternoon and go down the Heritage Trail and see what goes on there. These are women and children and with their babies and learning how to ride their bikes and stuff. This is, and old people who have no place else to walk.
Mr. Green,
This is really a wonderful thing.
could you please turn and address the council,
Okay,
please?
I'm sorry,
Yeah.
I was addressing them as well.
No,
Because I'm
let's
really
not
trying
do
to
that,
mediate a little bit of the negativity that is before us, because it's really would be a lot less negative if we would look at it more positively. I think that's probably as close as I can get to it. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Beth Massey. I live at 6952 South State Road 46. I have family that lives along this. I'm also a member of the Legion. I'm actually the daughter of the commander of the Legion. All the bickering and stuff going back and forth, it comes down to the fact that Riley is a rural community. That's why people live there. That's why they do not want this. Before the federal government changed the law, this property was supposed to go back to these homeowners. That's what they would prefer. If they cannot have that, then they don't want anybody on it. They want it to go back to natural. There are so many parks in this community that people can go to. I personally have a son who is a fireman, and I know that that walkway that everybody talks about over in West Terre Haute, it is a very big problem for them to get to people when they're having a problem. There are so many other things, and we have all these other parks, the new park that was just open, taxpayer money is going to have to go to keep the upkeep of all of these. Our taxes are going to go up because they're going to have to hire more people. I just don't think this needs to happen.
Thank you.
Dan Watson, 1397 Water Tree Road, Terre Haute. I'm also a former member of the NHRT board that's working on the Cross Strait Trail, that they're interested in Illinois, so we can go along US 40 all the way to Richmond in Indiana. So I've got a lot of experience on trails. I have ridden trails in Wisconsin for years. A number of us have gone up there. I have ridden trails in Ohio. Ohio has a great trail system that goes out through the woods in the back areas. This is not new stuff. People have been doing it for years. It is good for the areas that they're at. And if the people that want to do the research on the trail, let's not just do the negative research, go someplace. If you want to go over to Greencastle has a very low-cost, do-it-yourself trail system over there that's slowly improving. Most of it was done by one little old lady who was retired and relentlessly worked on this for years, approaching people, breaking down their things. The fellows that are worried about the four-wheelers, Jeff Ray is the council member for the NHRT from Henry County. He has spent a lot of time working on their trails. Again, low-budget trails. They're gravel. They're beautiful. He's trying to connect sections where he can get sections. He doesn't have this right now, that trail is not good because it all went back to the landowners. It's been used for stuff. People dig up the fill and use it other places and stuff like this, which that's not good either because that, who knows what's in that fill leaking out of rail cars. But one of the things that he describes as a problem is these rail lines are open, they're abandoned, nobody's in there, they dump tires on there, they dump trash on there. The four-wheelers run up and down the banks onto the people's property. That's one of the things he sells is, if we put a trail in there, now it's not asphalt, it's gravel, but we have rules. We have a rule that you can't be on there. If you're on there and arrested, you're gonna be fined and everything else. They're keeping these kind of things off these trails. So, again, I just want to say that, do we have too many parks? I don't think so. I think that's one of the best things that Vigo County has is the parks. That's the thing that, we've got a bicycle park now, or the mountain bike park, which is, going to be bringing nationals, competitions and stuff like this. We got a cross-country course here that the ISU that does. It brings many people into Terre Haute. We've got this convention center now. We've got all this stuff to bring people into Terre Haute. We make money off of that. The trails, will they bring people in? I don't know. If this cross-state trail is finished, that'll bring people in. We just had a group go last fall over and spend a week in Xenia, Ohio, which I don't know, I'm old, but I remember when Xenia got hit by the tornado years ago and was about basically destroyed. I've been there a lot of times. They've got a nice trailhead. I've sit down there at the trailhead there and talked with people that came out of Dayton. There's a lot of stuff in Ohio in the news. I'm mystified. People in Ohio don't realize what they have. I've got a brother that lives over there, and I'm going to talk to him and say, what's wrong with you people? But they've got a great system, and the development along there, little towns, bike shops, restaurants, all that on a very old trail system. So my thing is, looking into this, it's not necessarily bad. I think it's great. Riley's a rural community. There's a whole lot of subdivision out there. Would it be nice if those kids could come into Terre Haute, or people in Idle Creek can go from Idle Creek into Riley to get ice cream. I remember we used to do that when I was a kid. We'd go into Pulaski on the roads, on the paved roads or whatever, but that was out in the country, and go get something to eat there. So it's not rocket science. It's not new. People, I appreciate the farmer worrying about getting into his fields. I see that in Wisconsin. Farm fields, I've seen it in Illinois, farm fields on both sides of the railroad. They've been going over them for years. Actually, the trail makes it probably easier in most of these cases to go over there. And I don't think you're going to find a lot of people that are biking, wanting to get off the road into your field or whatever, into your places. So anyway, I just want to put an upspin on this. Like I said, I've done a lot of trails. I've been involved in trails. I think it's a good thing, and I think it'll be great for Riley. I just can't comprehend how people in Riley can't figure out that this is going to be a good thing for them. Thank you.
Thank
you. Name's Joe McKee, 7460 East First Drive, Riley. We bought a house, I don't know, it's been 9 years ago. We bought a house on a railroad track, because it's, halfway secluded, if we wanted a house on a bike trail, we would have bought a house on a bike trail. I don't want this, I'm dead against it. It's within feet of my back door. I don't care if they hold hands, drink Kool-Aid, and sing Kumbaya. I don't want them in my backyard. That's it. That's all I have to say.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Ryan Hartley Road. I am a little different than most of these people as I'm not a landowner, but I do use some of the property along the Riley Spur that I have permission to hunt. One of the things that I thought of that nobody's brought up yet is that is a rural area. People are going to be hunting along this trail. Are you going to put basically a highway in for people to be walking while people are hunting? I see a huge safety issue with that. One of the other things that was mentioned was trespassing is going to happen no matter what. You're right. I think all the people that own land, people that hunt, trespassing is going to happen no matter what. But you're adding more of an access for people to go back there who may not go back there if it wasn't there. One way to stop that, and I've brought it up, I've talked to some of you individually, is letting it go back to nature. You let that go back to nature, trees grow up, you're not going to be riding ATVs through there. You can't drive an ATV through a tree. It's just not going to happen. Some of the other things I brought up, or a lot of things I brought up were already discussed, so I'm not going to just repeat those. But the $1.3 million that proposed for this could be used in many different ways. Swalls needs repaved. Fry east of Margaret needs repaved. Tabortown gravel needs fixed. This is all different places that this money could be used for. And this is only about a 2 square mile area that I'm referring to in Vigo County. There's plenty of other areas that they could be used for. In a previous meeting that I was at, a lot of people stated that they supported the trail for the safety, getting bikers and runners off the roads, which I agree with. They should be able to enjoy what they want to do safely. Problem I have with this is both ends of this trail end up on major roadways. You end up on 641 bypass or near 641 bypass, or you end up out on State Road 46. I'm friends with people that run. I'm friends with people that bike. They're just not running or biking 6 miles at a time. It's been mentioned that future goals that they want to run the east end of Riley Trail out northeast to the Chinook area, and then we also want to take one from Mill Dam and put it up to Park County. My question is when are we gonna stop, and how much money are we going to spend on this? If the trail is allowed to go through, the precedent's already going to be set that land ownership does not matter, and landowners don't have the right to feel safe and secure on their property. As I mentioned, I hunt a couple pieces of property along the Riley Trail. I planned on trying to buy one of these properties. It might be 5, 10, 20 years down the road, but I wanted to buy it. It's a great place for what I do. But as long as we're talking about putting trails in on abandoned railways everywhere, or putting in boat ramps on creeks through private property, I would never look at Vigo County to buy property or buy another house. We're already high in taxes. I don't want the headache of having to worry about this if I buy a recreational piece of property. Last but not least, is kind of the other people have stated, is that these landowners, they moved out to the county and rural areas for their privacy. They moved in knowing that there was a railroad behind their house, but not a walkway. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Jim Morello. I live at 5860 South Canal Street. That's in the Lakewood subdivision out in Raleigh. I spoke at one of the meetings previously. I think it was 2 meetings ago, so I won't rehash everything, but a couple of the things that I've heard over the course of the last few meetings, I have had people say something about, well, you know, why you got to ride on the roads, and you know, 6 miles isn't enough for people to ride their bike on a trail, so what's the point? Not every cyclist is going to ride on the trail. It's not going to pull every cyclist off the road. I've been an avid cyclist for 30+ years. I don't go out and ride just a 6-mile ride. When I go out and ride, it's typically 60 miles. I'm not going to do 60 miles on a 6-mile stretch of trail, obviously. But the people that are going to use the trail are the people that come into my shop every day. I'm a business owner. I own Crossroads Cycler here in town. I get people that come into my shop that live out in county roads and whatnot that want to start riding a bike. They ask me, you know, where can I ride safely? I don't feel comfortable riding on the county roads. Some of the county roads aren't in well enough shape to ride on. I don't want to have to deal with the traffic. I don't want to have to deal with the people on their cell phones. So their only choice is to get in their car, drive to the Heritage Trail, and ride on the Heritage Trail. Living in Lakewood, I I've got two boys. I've got an 8-year-old and a 14-year-old. Both of them would love to go out and ride with me when I go out and ride. Last year, somebody mentioned the trail over Greencastle. Last year, our family went over there. We rode that trail. My 8-year-old rode the equivalent of a 23-mile trip, 12 and a half miles out, 12 and a half miles back, all on that trail. There's no way I can do that with him where we're at now. I can't ride through the subdivision without worrying that somebody's going to come ripping out of a driveway or ripping around a corner and hitting them. I definitely can't take them out across 46 into the other section of Riley. The trail would afford us at least an opportunity to get out on the road. It gives people that aren't comfortable out on the roads someplace to ride. And yeah, it's not the answer for everything. And it's not going to guarantee that there's never going to be anything bad that happens. Bad stuff happens. But it is going to give people an opportunity to do more than they're doing now. I get people that ask a lot about what does the town have to offer when they come in and they visit. My wife and I will go and we will visit various trails and various communities while we're out on vacation. I have been involved in or have ridden on a lot of different trails in a lot of different areas. Some in areas about the size of Riley and about the type of situation. I've been on others like in Louisville. Some of the trails are so elaborate, they've got street signs on them pointing to what spur you're going to go into what section of town. And I've also seen towns, little outskirt towns that have little sections of trail, and it has helped them. They have businesses that start up as a result of the trail. Not only does the community help the trail thrive, but the trail helps the community thrive. Yeah, it may not mean that everybody's going to come to Riley and eat ice cream or whatever, but it's going to give people an opportunity, and that's what I think we're missing here. I think there needs to be more opportunity for people to get out and do things and try to enjoy themselves. And, not doing anything is not the answer. We can't just leave everything like it has been for years and hope that things get better, because it won't. So I hope that you guys, as you're considering this option, considers everything and look beyond the immediate. There's always going to be somebody that's not happy with a decision. There's always going to be somebody that's a negative. I would like to think, though, that we can all get together and figure out how to make everybody happy and succeed. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Does anyone else like to offer public comment at this time?
Yeah, I'm Andrew Lusader, and I live at 6395 South Canal. And I have ridden a lot of bikes up and down Canal, and people run that road. They try their best to get as close as they can, and I've had them within a foot of my handlebars. And I'm kind of in favor of the canal, the trail, because of that, riding up down the road, because they go down that road lickety split, and that track that they're going to take out, they try to jump that track. And people come up that track so fast to get airborne, and it's hairy right in that area. So that's all I got to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
As a mother, my name is Joe F. And as a mother, I moved my boys to Riley because of the country living. If we wanted to be in the city, we would have moved there. But we wanted the country. I've been there 34 years. My property backs up to the rails. And if we ever wanted to go to the parks, the boys and I, we would get in our vehicle. We would go to town, because that's where the parks were. I moved there to the country to be in the country. And I'm sure a lot of these people behind me, who also are from Riley, moved there for the country, not to have people walking behind us, not to have bikes behind us. We moved there because it's the country. It's quiet. It's a small town, and it's peaceful. It's nice to be there. And I am not in favor at all. And I think it's a lot of money. I think it's wasteful. And I think there's other ways that that money could be used to do much better in Terre Haute. And I love the country, and I don't want people behind me. Oh, 5972 Boulder Road. Sorry, I'm shaking. But thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone else like to offer public comment at this time? Here's there's no one else. We'll move on to communications from elected officials, other officials, or agencies of the county.
I have a quick question. Commissioner. Did we ever get an answer on whether, did you actually talk to the Indiana Department of Natural Resources about the trestles?
Yeah, so I think it was brought up that there were some restrictions on the stream flows and things like that. The bridge structures that I've inspected, that I've looked at, don't seem to impede the flow of that. I deal with that on all of our bridges. You know, we have 200 bridges in the county right now that we deal with. So I typically see that in small structures and culverts and things like that. Those typically restrict those things from migrating upstream or downstream. These are open water structures that bridge those, so I don't believe that is the case on impeding any natural flow, but we can confirm with DNR.
It was just brought to my attention by somebody that there are a couple of them that are really deteriorated. Are we tearing those down? What are we doing?
So the issue with the fish, though, the DNR, that was part of the application process. The federal government already approved that, so all those requirements and concerns have been met. So I do want to address this. There are signs of illegal dumping. You will have that on areas that are remote where it's easy to dump stuff. And that's one thing that we'll have to do is get some tires and debris out of those creeks. After we do that, assuming we get the rights. If we don't get the rights, there's nothing we can do about it because we'd be trespassing. But if we can clean that up, that will also help with the flow and will help with our environment.
What about the trestles though specifically? With the ones that are, the wood is rotted at the bottom?
Yeah, so the ones that I've looked at, I mean, where there may have to be some minor repairs to some of those piers, but those are drastically oversized. They're designed to carry rail traffic. Pedestrian load is much lighter than that, even when we do put a deck on that. So we have looked at decking those and putting railing up on those ones that we have to. The others that we do not have to, we'll just pave right through. So there are two that, in particular, that would need the work, the maintenance work, and then the decking itself.
And then I guess I'm not understanding. I was told that there was a trestle that the trail would go under. Is that true? Is there a
Not on this section, no.
Okay, never mind then. Okay, thanks.
Yeah. So I reached out to the railroad and got a release, and I rode the trail because I felt like if we're looking to make a decision, we should be as informed as possible. And I think the stage that we're at right now, I would agree with President Loudermilk that we're talking a lot of question and answers about stuff that is more design, and we're looking at whether or not we should look at what's on the agenda as the $250,000 for the potential lease. So to me, when I looked at it, it looks like we need a beginning and an end to this trail, and right now is the part of the abandoned track is much more than what we would need initially. And I think if we look at doing this, it would be we would look at doing something from Idle Creek to Riley, the town of Riley, and maybe to the town hall or some terminus. So I appreciate all the questions on it. Like I said before, I'm a landowner. I do appreciate landowner rights, and I also like public access. And I think when we're looking at this, we're trying to weigh all those options, what benefits the county. So I appreciate everybody's input on that. And when I rode that, I didn't see that there being any trail that we ride under. And the only one that I saw that had some disrepair was the one over the Erie Canal. And it wasn't the trestle itself, it was the retention of the bank that had some deterioration to it. And there had been a flooding issue there in '08, I believe. So, but anyhow, it was talking to the railroad. They said the same thing that the engineer said, is that these are designed for rail, and so when it's pedestrian, it has a longer life expectancy.
Councilman Thies?
Is this the appropriate time to ask just a couple questions?
Yes,
Is that good?
absolutely.
Okay, one of the things I brought up, and I know have been in connection, because it had already been requested, but Commissioner Kern said you requested a 911 report, or were there any kind of issues with reports or anything on the trails?
I had Director Oster, Vicki Oster of our 911 division, run a report for the last 3 years if there's been any specific crime calls on the Heritage Trail, and she found none.
And then my other question, and for, I guess this is for the engineer, having gone through processes, both working in the city and the county and your experiences, you talked about the egg before the hen, all that. Typically, when you start looking at a project like this, is this a typical process where you look at the land, kind of getting that assured first before going into planning? And then even looking at like some of the projects you've done in the city or the county, just explain the process of getting feedback maybe from people along these avenues and things like, I think of like, the old Sheridan Park project you did, things like that. Because I think from what I gather, and I think this has always been my issue, is if we have an understanding of the process and where community members can engage in that process and mold what's happening or have a say in it, I think it brings a level of comfort or know where or when or how to engage. We always welcome engagement by every means, but just knowing exactly the steps, I think would really help in the process and communication.
Sure. So outside of this process right now that we're going through right now in this moment is a little bit outside of what we normally do, because normally we just come to you budget time. We request the funds to get started, and then we start working through the process. So then when we get into design, we get a general idea of what we would like to do, what we want it to look like, the goals that we want to accomplish with it, and then we reach out and then we kind of deal with the public as, hey, does this work, does this not work, are there issues that you need, are there specific access that you need to this, this place or this property, and then we work with them on a case-by-case basis on screening, anything. I do that with any project that we do. So, Spring Hill Road, for example, we're working on right now. I've dealt with property owners down through there. Additional trees they wanted removed. We were able to take care of that with the project. There's some different things drainage-wise that we do with those as well. So there are a multitude of things that we can do, but it really comes up once we get into the design of those projects themselves.
And I think that's, part of the process too, like I said, just understanding where we can have some input and say in it, because at this point, and I think a lot of things that go out there, we're in the planning stage. Nothing's been set, which is, I think, very clear. I think a gentleman, and I appreciate what he said about like the idea of like green and spaces and mentioning like trails, that you might even have like other areas that, some of it might be asphalt. There's other, things we can look at too. So I think keeping in mind that there's nothing set. We're still in development, and we want to look at some of those options.
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the things that was thrown out here at some point in the meeting was, maybe it's not an asphalt trail, maybe it's a gravel trail. We have one over in Wester Hill right now. It does very well.
Where it's finely.
Yeah, people use it. Yes, it's a crushed lime. It's maintained. It's graded. It's easy to maintain. It's relatively inexpensive. But there are some maintenance things that go along with that. Asphalt definitely lasts a little longer. It's what we like to shoot for, but if we have to, there are design options that we can do with everything. So.
Okay. And I would like to clarify too. I think when we talk about funding and budgets, and I think there's a couple places we can look at potentially funding this project. But I think it's important. I have never, as we look at projects, as we look at anything that we do for the county, I don't want to raise taxes. I think what we have to do, we have to make decisions on how and where we spend. And so, as I hear that, and I understand the concern by all means, we have different opportunities, whether it be through edit money that we have, which is economic development, and other areas. So when we talk about different roads and different ideas, we have very specific funds that we have to pull things from. And so having an awareness of, what funds are available, and we do have some money to work with. I am a big proponent of we have to, it's however we do it, we have to bring some change to this community. And I understand, people have their different ideas on where it is. But to move forward, and I see it from a very different side now, and I know probably grandstand talking a little bit much here, but when we look at businesses coming here, when we look at people coming here, we have to show that we're having some progress. And whether it be we do this project or another project or what, there has to be something that draws. And I think, there's been a lot of projects out there where people have not necessarily been in favor of it, and once it's done, see the positive around it. And so, I'm hopeful no matter what, we do or decide that we realize, I want to go beyond, I obviously like good roads, good sidewalks, things like that, but I want to go beyond that. Our county, I feel like our citizens deserve that, and our community does as well.
I guess it was Larry that brought up something interesting. I'm just curious why, when we knew about this in May of my battery's going dead, just so you know, if you can't hear me. Thank you. Why wasn't this included in the budget for this year? Because it was known about last May, apparently.
Sure. We were still negotiating with the railroad, so we didn't have that dollar figure on what we needed. So it was hard to come and ask for that at that point. We didn't finalize that up until end of November. I think it was end of November, December, something like that.
And I've heard rumblings around, Mr. Kearns, that you were going to look into some grants to possibly pay for this. Have you found out anything about?
No, so it's another chicken egg thing. Right after the opportunity came to us in, was it April? Commissioner Morris and I and Larry, was it just three of us? Went to Indianapolis to meet with the Department of Natural Resources, the main grants guy, Bob Bronson. Bob counseled us on what we need to do to pursue grants. And at the time, we were trying to get the railroad to donate the property to us. That did not work out. Then we tried the dollar method. That didn't work out either. Bob showed us how we can move forward. The key is we have to have matching dollars ahead of time. So part of this ask, this $1.3 million, includes the 250 easement acquisition, the 140,000 tie removal. So we need 390 to get out of the gate. Money on top, if the council blesses us with those funds, we would then have the ability to pursue grants. We just had another round of the Indiana Next Level Trails. There was a grant submitted by the city of Terre Haute that we partnered with them on. That was denied. And we all have theories as to why grants in our community are not being approved. One of them, it seems to be, we have a sentiment that we are a community of no right now, and the state recognizes that. If the council,
I think Mr. Grossman would probably disagree with you there.
I don't think he would.
He just got an extra $250,000 one
when you look at projects around us, Vermilion County announced, I'm going to be wrong on my numbers, Mike, 6.7 million was what they were awarded in the last round. Other communities are getting big projects awarded, and the state looks at us. They look at progress, as Councilwoman Thies noted. If the money is available to us by the council, that'll give us what we need to pursue grants, a 50-50 match, a 20-80 match. It'll give us something. Until we get that, though, it's hard for us to ask for those funds, because we're talking about timing. We're talking about the budget process. The timing on this has been terrible. And as you know, from the last two meetings that we've talked about this, the railroad gave us an ultimatum. You have until, well, now they've extended to June 1st. So I don't want to do my standard rambling all over the place, but I hope that kind of clarifies, yes, we are looking for grants. We need the funding in order to pursue them, and we will aggressively pursue them with hopes of getting money from the Next Level Trails program.
So just a little bit of clarity on this project. So there's a deadline of June 1st. Is that where we're at now?
Yes, I think June 1st, I believe, is the railroad agreement. It would expire, so they want to have something done before that agreement does expire.
Okay. And just clarity too on, if we move forward, what is the agreement between the county and the railroad if we're to move forward with this project with a 250 acquisition and 140 tie removal?
So if we move forward, what we would do is then in the fall, I would submit this project to the row students to help us with design, so we can help save money with that as well. They could design the project through their first and second quarters, and third quarters have something out as far as cost estimates, design plans, things like that. They could work with the property owners on all the issues that we've discussed tonight, access, screening, all those kinds of things, decking for the bridges, and all those things would be covered in that, just like a full, scale design. And then it would be something that I could stamp after, review and stamp afterwards, and move on to construction next year.
Okay. If the council does not grant this request, what then becomes of the property?
I do not know. Our agreement, I believe, with the railroad would be null and void, and then I'm not sure if the railroad would be interested in pursuing it again or not.
Could it potentially
Does it go
go
back
back
to
to the
landowners?
property owners?
No. I talked to Peter Ray with the Indiana Railroad today, because my confidence level of this moving forward is a lot lower than it was in the beginning. And I said, if the council does not fund this, we cannot entertain this for another 12 months. Where are we? And he says it goes on the auction block. They will offer the parcels up for sale, either as one person could come in and buy the whole line, or they will offer it for sale to the adjoining landowners. I was also informed, and everybody that has signed on to the lawsuit, you need to call your attorney immediately and ask them. But I was also informed that the only way that they will receive a settlement in this process is if this process moves forward. And I heard somebody say that's not true, and somebody called. So that's why everybody needs to ask their attorneys. What we are looking at is acquiring an easement. We do not own the property. The railroad is not selling it to us. The railroad is allowing us to use it. So that's what I was told by the vice president of the Indiana Railroad today. So if it's not approved, then it goes on the market after June 1st.
Thank you.
Specifically to the property owners?
To anyone.
The railroad's
he
getting rid
said
of the
to the-
property in some form. They don't want it. They don't want the liability. They don't have to worry about the 7 intersections.
At one point in there, you said that it would go on the auction block to the property owners.
The landowners could buy it, sure. That's what I was told by the vice president of the Indiana Railroad. I am not an attorney. My focus is the acquisition for the easement.
Sure.
I hope that we don't get to a point where we have to worry about that.
We've got
The-
people out here that are worried about it.
The information on the trail, part of that goes back to the National Transportation Department. They want to keep these railroad easements in case there is ever another railroad. And the point is to keep it without compensation is what the landowners are concerned about. That's why we filed the lawsuit. Because if they keep it for the railroad, we had to file suit to get any compensation because it has been overridden, the state law of Indiana that says it will automatically go back to the property owners. As far as I know, we've not heard anything from the lawyers of anything about it being auctioned off. I don't see that it can be, simply because the National Transportation Department takes this as a bank in case there's ever another rail come in. That way they don't have to come back and buy this property again. So that's what my understanding is. Thank you.
Thank you.
I do know that Indiana Railroad was not the primary owner of that. They actually purchased it. So whether it can be sold and transferred again, that's, like Brendan said, that's up to an attorney. But, I mean, they could sell it very well to another rail company if they wanted to. But, and then that easement would still be justified. So the short answer is we don't know what's going to happen. I mean, yeah.
Along that line, right now, if it were just to be left or whatever, there's rail in there, things like this, so it would not be clean,
No, the rail's been
It's
removed.
all gone, okay, most of it. Okay.
There are still rails at the crossings I know of. If there's some,
Okay.
yeah, those I'm not aware of, but I mean, and there's still ties there too. I don't know if the ties would be removed, or not.
Okay, thank you.
Part of the agreement is if we are able to acquire the easement, we've already agreed to move forward with taking care of the 7 crossings, where we will remove the rail, we will make sure that it's paved properly, we will do what's needed to protect those. If we do not move forward, I don't know who's going to do it. The town of Riley, they'll be responsible. The issues now where I send guys out, Bill, when spikes are popping up out of the racks or out of the ties, our guys go out and we hammer them down. If we do not get that property, that we're not going to do anything. And everybody here that has reached out to the railroad knows they're not going to do anything either.
What do you have, Mr. Havens?
We have a copy of that.
Yeah, we do. Yeah, that's all right. Thank you.
Again, these are all issues that should have been hammered out with the property owners long before now.
That's one question. Railroad comes to us, a road, are we responsible for maintaining, repairing that road?
Yes. Short answer is they are responsible.
Why are you asking if Riley's got problems with where the tracks go, roads, the railroad is liable to repair the roads when they went to the county, highways, interstates, whatever it may be, they're liable.
Well, I think what Brendan was alluding to was the railroad isn't always that diligent in repairing their crossings. So it's something that you can, and we have, and I've had experience in doing that through the city of Terre Haute. We fined them for blocking Margaret before the overpass was there. They simply pay the fine and move on. They still didn't do anything with the tracks.
Anything else from council? Okay. Moving on. First reading by summary reference, proposed ordinances, resolutions, ROC 2022-20, Treasurer, adopt investment policy. We have ROC 2022-21, Public Safety Lit, options for distribution to units for distribution in 2023. ROC 2022-22, Salary Ordinance 2022-14, Salary Ordinance 2022-15, Additional Appropriation 2022-18, Clerk of the Circuit Court, Payroll Salary. We also have, for first reading, ROC 2022-15, Resolution 2022-06, Commissioners, Resolution expressing interest in the purchase of a non-exclusive surface easement known as the Riley Spur. And ROC 2022-15, Ordinance 2022-01, Commissioners, Ordinance authorizing acquisition of non-exclusive surface easement known as the Riley Spur. Reports from committees, there are none. Moving on, resolutions and ordinances other than appropriations. First up, we have ROC 2022-20, Resolution 2022-05, Treasurer, adopt investment policy. Are you ready? Josie.
Josie Thompson, I'm the treasurer of Vigo County, and I requested council to adopt an investment policy. Appears that the last investment policy we had on file, I think it expired in 2016, and we are required by State Board of Accounts to have a policy in place.
So we have before us the resolution on page 21 of our booklet. I think Mr. Modisett is here also to assist.
Yeah, I drafted this policy. It's pursuant to Indiana statute, so if you look at the statute, I mean, it mirrors the statute of what's allowed. So it will give her authority, though, to invest and try to get some return on some of the monies that we have that right now aren't getting much return.
So it's a standard resolution? Okay.
Here's the statute.
Okay. Any questions from council? No questions from council? Josie, you're gonna get off easy.
Yeah, I think she's done a good job in her due diligence.
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate your time. Next up, ROC 2022-21, Public Safety Lit, options for distribution to units for distribution in 2023. As many of you know, this is something we look at every year. It is the Public Safety Lit options for distribution for the township fire departments and fire districts. You should have before you on page 23 of your booklet several different scenarios, each outlining the distribution for each unit, each fire department, fire district, what their distributions would be, dependent on the allocations, percentage allocations for runs and levy combinations. What we have done in the past years is the 65-35 distribution. So 65% is based upon their runs for the year, 35% is based upon their levy. The run numbers will be from calendar year 2021, which was, the information was created by County Dispatch. This ratio has been accepted from the fire departments over the past several years. The first year there was a lot of discussion about what really made sense, and over the past several years they've accepted this combination. So I would open this time for any questions or comments about that. This is something that we will hopefully take action on next Tuesday, and then each fire department will be required to give written notice to the council prior to June 30th, whether or not they want to participate. If they choose to participate, then we would vote on those allocations for distribution at our August meeting. Any questions? All right, moving on. We have ROC 2022-15, Resolution 2022-06, Commissioners' Resolution expressing interest in the purchase of a non-exclusive surface easement known as the Riley Spur. So on page 24, you should have a resolution before you regarding the interest to purchase what is known as the Riley Spur. Does anyone like to speak about that, or any questions from council?
once if we act on this next week, and then they would then take action to try to get a fair market evaluation to appraisals. That's the way I understand.
Correct. In the time frame, we're currently working on those now. So.
So those two appraisers, do we take the average of the two? Is that what's the maximum
Correct.
allowed?
The difficulty is trying to find appraisals to appraise this type of property. So it's not your relatively, normally we're acquiring 10 feet of, the front of somebody's property or something for something, or acquiring a whole parcel or something like that. This is kind of outside the norm, so
Sure.
we're doing our best to try to get somebody that can give us at least what they deem fair market value is for it.
It's approximately 100 feet right away times 5.9 miles.
Yep. So, I mean, if you do simple acreage, I mean, it's pretty reasonable considered what acreage is, in my opinion, but that's not for me to determine. That's for appraisal. So.
Oh, 20 acres.
Any other questions from council? Yes.
In the next ordinance, it says it's the average of the two appraisals and a not to exceed 250,000. So
In the ordinance itself?
in ordinance 2022-01,
01,
it's
yeah.
next on.
So with that, we are ROC 2022-15, Ordinance 2022-01, Commissioners, Ordinance authorizing acquisition of non-exclusive surface easement known as the Riley Spur. So there appears to be a lot of the same language as Ms. Miller stated. Price not to exceed the average of the two appraisals, or $250,000, whichever is less. Any questions from council? Moving on, ordinances relating to appropriations. We have clerk's office. And I think probably makes sense just to, I'll state all these now because it's all going to run together with the way this request is set. So we have salary ordinance 2022-14, ROC 2022-22, Vigo County Clerk. Salary ordinance 2022-15, ROC 2022-22, Vigo County Clerk. Additional appropriation 2022-18, ROC 2022-22, Vigo County Clerk. And there is, I think there's kind of a lot here, right? Is it,
Good evening. Leanna Moore, Vigo County Clerk's Office. I apologize, I'm very tired. It was an 18-hour day yesterday. Listening to all of you discuss was interesting, but we need to get on with business. This is just a need of changing some payroll line items. We have run out of funds in the, what is it, Calissa? It's called
It's in the new clerk
Incentive Fund. Yeah, the new clerk incentive fund, yes, thank you. And I asked the prosecutor's office to give us some of theirs, and they did $25,000 until we can get this lined out. The money's not coming in as it has before it started with COVID-19. The reimbursements that we normally get are just not there. So we are asking just to move our payroll for one person that normally gets paid out of the new clerk incentive fund to be paid out of the general fund for the clerk's office, and then move one person that just works solely on records, moved into the perpetuation fund. And it's, all the money's already there. It's just a matter of getting your blessing to move those line items. We did decide that I probably need to leave about $10,000 in salaries for the perpetuation for just extra work that normally gets paid out of that. It's very small amounts usually. But like I said, the money's already there. It's just a matter of moving the line item.
They also need an appropriation.
Oh, for the perpetuation fund. Yes.
Perpetuation, they need an additional appropriation to fund position they're requesting moved in there. They're also salary ordinance for that fund to allow the auditor's office to, that provides the auditor's office authority to pay for that fund.
Yes. Thank you, Calissa.
And at the same time, they're also eliminating a position in the clerk perpetuation fund. So 2022-14 adds the position into clerk perpetuation. Salary ordinance 2022-15 deletes a full-time deputy court clerk from the new clerk incentive fund.
Questions, concerns?
And then the additional appropriation covers what?
The position that would be moved to the clerk perpetuation fund, because right now there's only part-time help.
For the bookkeeper, is that right?
No, it's,
Part-time help.
it's a part-time position for the perpetuation fund. It's a records position only.
Okay.
We currently have a cash balance of, I think, $325,000 in the perpetuation fund, but it just needs, the amount that we need just needs to be appropriated into that fund so that we can pay that full-time salary out of that fund.
Now, I will tell you that moving them over, if I can find my notes, it's a temporary fix. At some point, the perpetuation fund will not be able to fund that position. Excuse me, the annual revenue right now, over the last 3 years, the average annual revenue is approximately $45,000 for the perpetuation fund. And that cost of that position, I believe, was like $62,000
Right.
by the time you have benefits. So you'll lead into that operating balance a little bit every year until it's depleted, and you're gonna have to shuffle around again.
But we're talking several years with the cash balance at $320,000. And, I mean, we need to do something immediately, or these positions are not going to be funded. At least the one position
Yeah, one position.
for the new clerk incentive. She is our deputy that works in our 4D court, and that is the only court she works in, so that's why it's always been paid out of there. I've been in the clerk's office I've been the chief deputy for 5.5, almost 6 years now. We've never had a problem until now. I've never had to reappropriate or ask for any kind of line item transfers as far as payroll goes. And I was kind of confused about it, actually, because I've never had to deal with that part of it. So this is all new to me as well.
Any questions from council?
Yeah,
Councilman Thacker?
I might ask, the question is, so when you do this, if we make these appropriations and these changes, then will you then adjust your budget for for
Yes.
23? That will.
When we go into budget, yes, absolutely. When we
Okay.
go into budget, we will make those recommendations on the budget with the budget committee.
So this appropriation is just for the remainder of this year?
Yes.
Okay. That's what my confusion was on. Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it.
For last night, too. I know it was a long one, and for the election.
On your basis.
Next up, we have additional appropriation ordinance 2022-11, ROC 2022-15, edit. And also additional appropriation ordinance 2022-12, ROC 2022-15, American Rescue Plan.
That's 11 and 12, right?
What did I say? Did I say
Oh,
that?
ROC 20. Okay, I'm sorry. I was thinking you said ordinance number.
Was that right?
It's been a long
I
night.
usually get it wrong at this late in the meeting, so I wasn't sure.
Yes, they should have been inserted. Did you put the, so you,
What's this, right?
they're on the very back,
Oh, it's in the back?
end of the, yeah. She added them.
To this? Oh, last two? All right.
Yeah, I thought she was gonna insert them, but she actually attached it.
Okay. We should also have some additional information, right? No? Okay.
The pages aren't numbered. So the very, so it'd be like 31 and 32 if they had numbers.
All right. Commissioner Schweitzer, you have something?
Council President Loudermilk, members of the council, first I want to thank you guys for meeting with me, talking about American Rescue Plan Act monies and some projects that we may do in the future. I want to specifically discuss with you about using American Rescue Plan Act money with this money. This is not a project that qualifies. We were in a gray area of interim rules at the beginning when we first started discussing this, and not knowing whether we could use American Rescue Plan Act money to do this, we could or couldn't. We didn't know at the time, but now we have asked those questions, working with RJL Solutions and Ryan Ritchie, who is a government relations person for the federal government. He did specifically ask about the Riley Trail project, and this is not a project that does qualify. So this ask would specifically have to come from edit.
If it could qualify for edit, it can't qualify for ARPA. I was under the impression that anything that could legally be government service, any other fund, that it would qualify in ARPA for the 10 million that we set aside.
So coming to a conclusion of after sitting down with everybody, it would be hard to justify COVID-19 related expenses for the acquisition of a trail. We could certainly try, but ultimately if the government audits us and says, well, this didn't work, it's still going to have to come from somewhere. So we think the best backup plan would be just to purchase right now from edit and be finished with it. And then also, I want to throw out there, maybe we didn't do the best due diligence with this trail. I understand that. I accept that, and I will apologize to the community that has now left. But there's always an option of you guys can just appropriate the $340,000 that we need, and if you would like us to budget for this over the next year or two and just do certain sections, we can do that. If you don't feel comfortable with a full 1.3 ask, we would certainly appreciate that. That way we can get off the ground running. But this is not a day one project construction where we're just going to start. If you guys approve this next Wednesday or next Tuesday, on Wednesday we can't start anyway. So given this, to Rose Holman, and we're fortunate to be partnering with them for them to do their design and things like that, it's going to take a while anyway. So, I just want to throw that out there. We would just be happy to be able to get the property. We can control illegal dumping. We can control trespassing with sheriff's deputies. We can get through the planning process, the design process. We can get to meet with those individual landowners, and then we can start discussing fencing, shrubs, whatever it takes. Or If you guys just want to fund enough to do white rock or gravel or lime or whatever, we can do that as well.
I still have an issue with the landowners and the lack of communication with them. That this should have been ironed out with them. I know you're apologizing for it, and I get that, but it should have been ironed out with them. They should not be last minute finding out about this. And I personally would like to see something in writing from an attorney or someone in authority to tell me what actually is the possibility of what will happen if we don't approve this. Is it gonna go back to the property owners, which they all have their abstracts, and that's what they fully believe, that if we don't do this, it'll go back to them? Will they be the have first right of refusal to purchase it if we don't do this? I just would like to know from someone in authority at the railroad or an attorney to tell me definitively what will happen if we don't approve it.
You know, I think Brendan and Mike and I will do our best to come up with that. I mean, to be honest with me, I don't know. I mean, it's such a gray area with litigation going on with property owners anyway. You know, at the end of the day, an attorney's going to make that decision for us, I think. So, you know, I don't know. But not making excuses. It's just this thing has went from we thought we were going to get it, we didn't think we were going to get it, we thought we were going to get it, and then boom, we got to have it. So, and I hate to say this, but we're all politicians. And when we make a statement and we say it, and Howard quotes it, and it's in the Tribune Star, nothing against you, Howard, but we better darn well stick by it, because what we say is what we're supposed to do. So, you know, I'm reluctant to say we're going to do so many things, especially to property owners at this time, until we can see if we're going to get the funding to even be able to make the project go. So, Brenda, I agree. Not making excuses for us. We probably should have done better. So,
Well, and I'm hesitant to approve anything
That's
without
fine.
knowing what all the possibilities are. And I just don't, I think that's a horrible way to do business.
Well, and I
Without
think,
having all the
you know,
information and you just jump in and.
the trespassing issue that the gentleman brought up earlier, if we don't get control of this property, the trespassing is just going to be worse. You know, if you're a homeless person, you're already trespassing on the railroad anyway, and you're walking down that line. At least if we own the land, and we can come up with a plan over the next year, 6 months to a year, to get the design done, the construction process started, at least get the railroad crossings taken care of, get those spikes out of there and the rail, you know, we'll get the ball rolling. But until we know if we're going to get this going, and if you don't support it, Brenda, that's fine. I completely understand. But there's a lot of things.
And it's not just me, because it is not my money. I'm representing the people in my district, and the majority of the people in my district have said, absolutely not. Do not spend 1.3, I mean, my phone was blowing up this last couple of weeks. Don't do it, because they don't see the benefit. They would like to have more instant gratification. They would like to see something that we invest in that's gonna create revenue, that's gonna bring money back in, rather than just literally throwing money out into the woods. Those are the words of the people that I'm representing, because it's their money. And it's my money, I'm a taxpayer too, but it's their money. And that's what my people are telling me.
I represent the same people, the same district, so I understand.
All
I got
these
it.
people that came in tonight to speak to.
But, you know, we need to own the property before we can chase a grant. I mean, there are grants out there. I can't stand grants, because ultimately, at the end of the day, we still have to find a way to fund it in some way. But, you know, the Indiana Next Level Trails grant, it's absolutely there. But without owning the property, or knowing if we're going to own the property, we can't chase any of that stuff yet. So sorry, I didn't mean to, Council President Loudermilk.
No, you're good, no.
I just, the American Rescue Plan Act, you know, it's so fuzzy, so gray. We do have certainly some projects that many of you know about now that we hope we can get on in the budget this year and get started on, but this project should, in my opinion, come from edit.
And, excuse me, one other question.
Sure.
You have not promised all of the edit funds to other things.
No, ma'am.
There is 1.3 still
At this time,
available in the edit account.
I don't think we have anything promised with edit at all.
Okay.
We have some ongoing edit projects. Spring Hill is one of those, but the majority of that has already been funded. So we're all looking at, and this would all be budgeted, I mean, we could all take this into account with the future budgets as well. So I believe there's as much as, enough of a cash balance plus enough of a revenue that we can still stay within what we need to accomplish this through edit.
I've provided an updated, form.
Oh, the edit.
And I will say too, it's hard for the normal, everyday working Vigo County person to come to a 9 o'clock county commissioner meeting. I mean, it's just hard, so we will do better.
I would just like to kind of add on to one more thing if possible. With edit and economic development and, funds coming in or out or et cetera, I think it's a hard thing because we don't, when you look at economic development, it's hard to say what opportunities become of projects, like what draws people here, what do, people move to the community for. It's not an easy measure to see how it's not just simply, like looking and balancing books. And so, when I look at the county, we definitely have to spend wisely, but I also think we have to do things when we look at things like what might lead to the future development, might lead to other, organizations, people coming here. And, I trusting and listening to professionals in economic development that have talked to some of the businesses, why we're coming, why they're not coming. I know the parks is a big draw. We do have a great system. But in traveling and looking at other communities too, we have to kind of start to think out of the box. And I think, looking at, it's sometimes unnerving to take new risk and try different things or different areas. But that's sometimes comes with it too. So I appreciate it. I think it's a hard, answer to say there's this perfect formula of what will it bring, what will it not bring, how will it, could there be other businesses? I look at the bikers in the morning. I study and work almost every Saturday or Sunday morning at one of our local coffee places. And the amount of bikers and people from the trails that come in, I see the business it brings to an area. And I think those are hard measures. Those are hard things to see. So I think, personally, I actually thought it was more economic development. That was my own opinion anyways. But
Well, just a what-if scenario. What if this $1 million, $1.5 million investment turns into a 50-house development because we're adding on to the Idle Creek neighborhood? We're adding a trail around Idle Creek. I'm just trying to look at the big picture down the road of what this could spur. Maybe it won't spur anything, and we'll just have another nice trail in Vigo County. But just from what has happened in West Terre Haute alone, I think good things will follow this pathway. So getting our tax base up and things like that is important too.
I just want to say, I appreciate you guys having a vision and looking ahead, because this is what I think we're supposed to do. We're supposed to look at it. No, it's not going to make everybody happy, and I can appreciate what Brenda's saying is where she's getting phone calls and emails. I too have gotten those, and I probably have had more positives than negatives on my end. But I try to look at this very objective too, is this economic development, and I am not in favor necessarily giving 1.3 million out of edit to fund it right now, but I am in favor of listening to what the options could be is if we develop part of it and we do it segments at a time. I won't know for exactly sure how I'm going to vote until next week, when we do on it. But I think that we have some options here, and I appreciate what you guys are doing as commissioners to put those options out there. I don't see at this time that we need to have this trail go all the way to Klingerman. That's just my personal opinion. I think if it goes from Riley to the road there by Idle Creek is probably a nice section to get started on. And the engineering is a great opportunity, and I don't know what the development it could bring, but I think it is something. I don't think we're going to get another deal like we got at Rubel Park.
No, probably not.
And so, and if we do, we could name it Schweitzer Park, if you get another one like that, yeah.
I'd rather have that named after me than a jail. So, I think everybody would agree.
I think you're tied to the jail forever. But, I do appreciate what you guys are doing on this, and this is the tough decisions that we get within council, and we're trying to get, and I appreciate that the they've got two opportunities to come, and I'm sure that some of the people for or against it will come to the next meeting. And I plan on making that meeting too. I won't miss another meeting.
Yeah, and Council President Loudermilk, if I may, the additional $140,000 ask is a contractor that has to be approved by CSX to remove the ties and dispose of them. So it's not something that we can just do. Plus, it would be a tremendous ask of our county highway guys to try to do it. So that's why we're really needing the additional $140,000.
I'm sorry, I just had one other, something you brought up, you said that you couldn't ask for grants until we own the property. We're not going to own the property, we're leasing it.
No, but we can use the easement as collateral. I should have said own, I'm sorry.
But leasing it would still open it for grants?
It still shows in good faith that the county is proactively working to go after the grant.
What type of grants, again, are we looking at?
Indiana Next Level Trails. So the Monon Trail just received a huge one. Vermilion County, it's actually 1.1 million. But their problem is Vermilion County is not as fortunate as us where they're getting 5 miles of trail, old railroad trail. They're having to purchase and acquire specific pieces of people's parcels. And that is going to take a long time. You know, we're fortunate to where we have nearly 7 miles of trail that's already in place that we don't have to go after those acquisitions.
And I believe that's what has happened in northern Vigo County. I see the other side of it, that when you don't take control or like work with it, there's a beautiful line of the old rail line that goes through northern Vigo County, right, you know, by my area. And it would be great, you know, to connect, obviously, but part of the issue is it's been on, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but it's, to get it and do it now would be very, very difficult, and the process would be tedious and very expensive. And so in looking at that and looking at other trails, I think I didn't know if I sent it to somebody, but just looking at the Center Grove Greenwood area, I think just did a trail that was like, I don't know, just 2 miles long, and it cost 3 times as much as ours. And it was because of that process. So I think that's what, you know, brings attention to this, is if there's a different process in the future, it'd be much more difficult.
Well, and we're blessed too to have a state that's investing in things like these projects. I mean, they're passing out money like no other state for trails projects and things like that. So we'll try to capture as much of it as we can, if we can, when we can.
Yeah, I'd like to echo that. I mean, we're seeing this push across the state and in progressive communities around the state, and these are the things that they're doing. So this is not just something we're inventing. This is a process that is going on around the state. Next Level Trails is a huge commitment for that. I believe that was $100 million in trail funding that went around the state. So this is not, that is money that does not come to our community unless we go get it. And if we don't show that we're willing to put our own skin in the game and do some of these projects on our own, the state is not going to be willing to approve us grants and bring money into our community, like the walkway and other projects that bring, you know, not only development, but bring attention, bring positivity, contractors, you know, just to build it, things like that. So there's numerous things that go on to that. So I think the economic side of it is definitely one thing. I think the other thing too is we hear a lot of issues about, you know, what ifs, if this happens with the trail and everything else. The one thing I'd like to look at is work with those property owners. This isn't over. I mean, if we do this and this adversely affects them, I don't think the commissioners or me, we're just going to turn around and walk away. I mean, we're willing to work with them as for this thing. So if we put some screening up there and it doesn't quite work, maybe we'll work with them. I'm not going to say we can immediately do it, but we will work with them over time to see if we can correct those issues. So.
Aaron, I know you got some questions. Let's go. Nick, can I come in?
Here, you can have this one, have the extras.
There's a part in particular support that I have it. Crossed out, hospital out.
No, I don't, and I gotta find out. I mean, I was a part of the phone call when Brendan called Peter Ray today, and that is what he said. It would basically go to a land auction. But I need, that's just a guy from INRD. I need to speak to his attorney. So on behalf of the commissioners, I will have Terry Modisett reach out to. I really don't want to have them reach out to this attorney because this attorney is obviously, well, I'll have him reach out to the Indiana Railroad attorney to see what their real plan is if this doesn't happen.
This is a possibility that this attorney has the information accurate?
It could be, Brenda, or Miss Wilson, I'm sorry. I don't know.
It's a case status update, so I would think.
Yeah, I'll get that. Yeah, and if I get the information, I'll pass it along to all of you.
Something that's, I think it was Mr. Hartley wrote, have mentioned earlier that I guess should have been thinking about, but wasn't necessarily, was the safety concerns which might be present as it relates to hunters in the area.
Yeah, I didn't consider that either.
I guess I didn't consider that. And
The only thing I would counter back with that is there's houses right on the other side of the trail. So I would assume, or the rail right now, I would assume hunters know that they shouldn't be shooting toward houses. So I don't know why they would start to, shoot that way if anything changes.
I think it might, I think it just depends on where you're at on the
Sure.
trail too, yeah. I think that's probably accurate in some spots, but not others. Is that right, Todd?
Yeah.
That's you.
Well, that's kind of why I didn't want to say what I was going to say. But
Of course, that's why I asked if it was a possibility that this could be right.
Well, and it clearly states here, it states 3 possible outcomes. So, you could theorize any possible outcome. But if we can contact somebody with the
Absolutely.
railroad and they can
Yeah.
verify that that is in fact the case or is not the case, then I think that's important to know, yeah.
Brendan has a great relationship with Peter Ray, so I'm sure he can.
I'd like it in writing, please.
Sure.
One other thing in relation to the hunting issues, I had someone bring up to me that people have like archery targets and things like that in their backyards right now that are at the trail, or what would be the potential trail, the rails, and it would inhibit their ability to practice target shooting and that sort of thing. So it's,
I understand. I know. You guys have a tough decision. We have a tough decision, and it's just something that you got to figure out. We got to figure out together.
one other
So,
question, if we approved whichever account, the 250 and the 140, and then we decide not to go forward with it, we're just out $390,000?
well, I think it would still be important for Vigo County to own the property.
For what reason?
Or release the property. Gosh, I keep saying no, and I'm
Yeah.
sorry. Lease the property, because we can maintain it. If we do have an illegal dumping, 9 times out of 10, if you call the railroad and tell them there's illegal dumping, they're not going to do a thing about it. They may, but at least we can take care of that. And then some of the trespassing issues, I think we can address better than what INRD does now. And I would just hate to not see, even if we lease it, the ties are removed, at least that's improving the land. And the property owner should be happy about that. So there won't be ties there.
I'm
Yes.
still stuck on this issue of what happens, what legally happens in writing. I want to know what will happen if we turn this down. Will the property owners, will it revert back to them? Or
Give
will
it-
they have first right of refusal to purchase it? That's the crux of the whole thing.
We will do our best to have that information for you by next Tuesday.
Thank you.
On June 8th, I presented to the, June 8th, 2021, presented to the Riley Town Board this project. So I started going through some of my notes. I think I've attended about 6 Riley Town Board meetings, updating them each month on where we were. One of the things I realized on that first meeting was, and we've talked about this in prior discussions, there are people that built structures in the town of Riley on the railroad's easement, on their property. And one of the things that did come up was if the property does transfer to another entity, if there's a speculator that comes in and gives them $250,000, the railroad made it very clear. They're getting at least $250,000 out of this. They don't care how they get it, they're getting it. If a prospector were to come through like that, they are going to make life very challenging for those landowners that have buildings, a yellow building that's in the town of Riley. Some of the people that were here tonight have properties, structures on that easement. What I shared with the Riley Town Board was if we're able to acquire this easement, there won't be any worries there because we're not going to go after them. We will make it right. We can't deed it over. Originally, we thought we could, that we could buy the property fee simple and then carve it out. But we since realized we can't do that. It has to be for the easement. But this gives the landowners along there a level of protection that they currently do not have. And several of those people were here tonight against this project. So on June 8th, that's when I had the first public discussion in the town of Riley. I think that's important for everybody to hear and understand that.
And we're just finding out about this now?
People aren't just finding out about it.
No, right,
21.
right.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it wasn't brought to us until now, is what I'm saying. Or wasn't brought to our attention until now,
What's that?
any of this.
Okay. Yeah, we've had discussions with council members about this, so.
I will say, it would be tough for Mike or Brendan, it's in both of their districts, touches both of them, to go knock door to door to make sure everybody's happy. I mean, we all have things going on daily. We work with Larry daily and stuff like that, so, you know, we should have done a better job. I admit that, but, this has been going on for almost 2 years now, so.
Well, and I too get that. We built Oak Ridge Park and Oak Brook Development. When we started with Oak Brook Development, we started building a couple of houses, and oh my gosh, the people in Prairie Park right across the street were livid. Oh, all that drainage is gonna come off into our property. And I mean, so there's a period of time where people have to learn to adjust to the change, because after we got a couple of houses built, they started realizing, our property values are going up because of these. Build more, build more. So I get that part of it too, that it's a change that people don't want to see in their neighborhood.
Yep.
I get that too.
We call them NIMBYs.
Yes.
Not in my
Of
backyard.
course, not in my
But
backyard,
I can
of
understand
course.
too, if there's something going on behind my house that I didn't want, I would absolutely fight for it as well, so.
Yep.
But not to be skeptical, and I'm reluctant to even say anything, I have an apartment person that is willing to invest in West Terre Haute, near Dewey Point, on the levee, and I actually get to meet with them tomorrow. Something I never thought would be possible, and a huge proponent to that was the trail on the levee through West Terre Haute.
Not sure that's gonna appease people who want to live
I
in the
know.
country and have
No, I
this
know,
in their
I'm just
back-
saying, I'm just looking ahead to the future for, you know, economic development. Could this be
Sure.
something that leads to something else? And
I totally see that side too.
So I've taken enough of your time, just wanted to make
I
sure
know
you
that
knew
Sorry.
as much as we know. And, you know, I certainly don't want any animosity between the county commissioners and the county council. I want us to get along the best we can. So if you feel that way, or you feel like there has been some of that, I apologize for that too, but we're just all trying to do the right thing for everybody collectively, so.
Any other questions from council? Mr. Schweitzer?
I appreciate you guys meeting with me with the ARPA funds. Maria, I still need to meet with you, and Ms. Waker didn't go, but that's okay.
Thank you.
Yep.
All right. With that, I would entertain a motion to adjourn. Motion by Councilman Thacker,
Okay.
second by Councilwoman Wilson. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
We adjourn.